Imagine what it might be like to sit down with the unpredictable comedian Jim Carrey for a few questions and answers. If you can't imagine it, well, don't worry. Tracy Smith is here to show us.
And the one, and the two, and the...
Even in times like this, a chat with Jim Carrey can be just a bit surreal.
So here we go.
Look how big my fists are. Jeez. You could hurt somebody with that thing.
I should just be quiet and just let you go.
Yeah, I'm sorry. You handle it. No, it's okay.
And it seems like he's just as quirky as an author. Carrey's Memoirs and Misinformation is out this week, a memoir/novel that he's worked on for 8 years with co-writer Dana Vachon.
What's the process been like?
It's been different at different phases, but let's say the last 2 years was deeply intense, and the two of us in a room really getting it right, getting it perfect.
Sweating every line.
I know it's fiction, but you really put yourself out there.
I slice myself in two and lay on a rock and let the gulls pull my entrails out.
Is it my hair, Bill? Are my teeth not white enough? Or like the Great Falls is the bedrock of my life, eroding beneath me.
Carrey's memoir doesn't fit into a neat category, but it does share a few themes with some of his movies. He casts himself as a flawed leading man.
You can call me Bruce.
Like the one in Bruce Almighty.
Oh, and in case I don't see you, good afternoon, good evening, and good night.
And in the book, he lives in a Truman Show-like world where it's often hard to tell where the fantasy ends and reality begins.
Even though this is fiction, do you think we emerge with a clear idea of who Jim Carrey is?
I think it's the best way to get to know me, is to get to know my mind.
I'd like to go way back now.
And what a strange place his mind seems to be. Long before Jim Carrey became a big-name comedian, he'd make his family howl at their home north of Toronto, often as a sidekick to his father, Percy.
One of the parts of the book that feels more memoir to me is when you talk about your childhood and your parents. You talk a lot about your dad. Was he your hero?
My dad, I wish the whole world could know my dad, but maybe they know him a little bit through me. He was there for me. He was my champ, my absolute champion.
Percy Carrey was the one who helped young Jim write his first jokes and drove him to his first club gigs.
You said he basically saved you because he brought you to this comedy club and you kind of saw...
You're not going to be happy until I'm sobbing openly. Right?
That's not the plan, I swear.
Think I want to get stuck in this dead-end job? No, sorry, not me!
Jim's dad helped him put together a stage act.
I want to do something wonderful.
And found him a place to let it fly.
I want to be one of those gospel singers on the PTL club.
And he said, you know, there's these places called comedy clubs. You know, maybe we should go check it out.
Hey, baby!
Early on, Carrey's career was a mixed bag. He killed in the clubs.
Come here for a second.
But failed an audition for Saturday Night Live.
It didn't crush you?
I've always had a nonsensical belief in myself and the universe. I didn't make it on Saturday Night Live. Basically what happens to me is there's an automatic reset that my brain goes into where I say, I might not be able to make it through the front door like everybody else, but I'll make it through the basement window. I'll make it through the back door. I'll find a way to parachute in on the roof and climb down into a window. I have faith. I think faith is better than hope. You know? Hope walks through the fire and faith leaps over it.
And talk about a leap of faith. In 1990, he was cast on the Wayans family's groundbreaking sketch comedy show, In Living Color.
I'm white, and I'm capitalizing on a trend that's currently rising. Mix it with Curly and Larry and Moe. Hey, yo!
I'm here because of In Living Color and the incredible talents in the African-American community that supported me and allowed me to grow in their world that they created. The Wayans gave me my big break. You know, I can't ever thank them enough.
This is your brain on drugs. Any questions?
Carrey also writes about another big influence in his life.
That's the story of my life. No respect. I got no respect at all. You kidding me? No respect at all. You kidding me?
legendary comedian Rodney Dangerfield.
To you, he was a mentor, he was a friend.
He just loved me. He loved me and he encouraged me. And I'd get off stage and he'd say, trying some new stuff, kid. Then I say, yeah, he'd say, good stuff, good stuff. That's great. Keep it up. He was completely encouraging to me.
And when Dangerfield lay dying in a hospital in 2004, Carrey was with him.
There's a moment we talk about in the book where I saw him just before he passed. And I joked with him and I laughed with him. And suddenly the machines lit up in the room. And all the doctors and nurses ran into the room and said, what happened? What happened? What are you doing? And I said, I don't know. It seems like he's trying to speak to me. They said, this hasn't happened for a while. There's been no activity at all. And I just knew he knew I was there.
You kind of wonder what Rodney would have said about these. For a while now, Carrey's been trying out other media, like painting and political cartoons. And for advice, he says he listens to his daughter, Jane.
My daughter is one of the most brilliant counsels of my life. Honestly, she's so wise and so loving. She's brought me back from the brink a couple of times.
What do you mean?
She just has chimed in with a few words that have really opened my heart and settled me down and made me feel like everything's all right. She's just wonderful.
And she's also made him a grandfather.
Hold on, let me take my teeth out. It's always great to go swimming and stuff like that on a beach and it'd be screaming, Grandpa! Grandpa! So I'm like, hey, cool it, kid. Just chill. Grandpa!
And maybe he had his grandson in mind for his latest movie.
That's brilliant, sir.
Thanks.
You poke fun at big studio family films in this book. And yet, you just made Sonic the Hedgehog.
Yeah. I'm fully aware of the hypocrisy that I am living in. And I mean to celebrate it. There's occasional times when I go, there's nothing wrong with doing something family friendly, as long as I'm not complete sellout mode when I do it.
This guy is something else entirely.
I guess you might say Jim Carrey the actor is no different than Jim Carrey the comedian or even Jim Carrey the author.
My grasp on sanity remains absolute.
Often ridiculously funny.
Isn't that right, Agent Stone?
And completely unpredictable.
I've challenged my audience all the way along. I've been rather brutal about it, and I've asked them for a lot, and they've given me a lot. And now I'm a political cartoonist and an author now, and maybe because I know how beautiful a gift that is, and I'm very grateful for it, I seem to be gaining acceptance in those places, which is just incredible. What a life I'm having.